Okay, so I want to talk about the differences in preparation between Monster Hunter and Wild Hearts. And I think it's important to talk about the differences because it can also help us um, look at where the games can go and how they can improve preparation aspects rather than the complete removal of them, because I think that having preparation is a very important feature of Monster Hunter or hunting games in general, and it's something that I would like to see maintained while also not having it be something that is obnoxious to participate in. So, in Monster Hunter, you have a few different types of preparation. You have the most basic style, which I think people kind of overlook, which is armor preparation. Obviously, depending on what kind of weapon you plan on using, you're going to equip a different armor set to equip the skills that you need for that particular weapon, right? That's a form of preparation. And the second form of preparation is all of your items that you plan on bringing along the, in the hunt, depending on what it is you want to do, right? Obviously, if you want to capture the monster, you're going to bring traps. You're going to bring trap tools just in case you set down a trap and the monster leaves. Barrel bombs and the ingredients to make them if you plan on using them a lot, as well as flash bombs, right? If you plan on stunning the monster for a little bit, as well as the um, attack boosting stuff, or even, you know, the defense, anything really, just items in general, right? So setting up an inventory of items that you plan on using, right? That's probably, um, I would say, just as important as, preparing your armor set and weapon. And another form of preparation that Monster Hunter has is meal prep, right? Eating different kinds of meals to provide you with certain bonuses depending on what it is that you are looking for, and also depending on what kind of weapons that you have, right? It's another very important part. And that's pretty much as far as preparation goes in Monster Hunter, right? At least when you're in the end game. Now, when you're starting out, you're not going to have a lot of items, and you're going to need to actually go out into expeditions to collect certain materials, so that way you have a surplus of items and don't need to constantly be going out into the field until you get to the point where you unlock the Argosy, where you can simply just request certain items and have a steady supply of ingredients coming without you having to do anything. And there is a little bit of preparation involved, I suppose, with, that aspect of the game. But other than that, there really isn't any other forms of preparation. When it comes to Wild Hearts preparation, it pretty much falls into the same categories of Monster Hunter. You've got your armor sets and weapons that you obviously you can customize depending on what kind of monster you plan on going up against. And it also has food preparation, which is a little bit more intense than Monster Hunters, where you simply just do a couple side quests in Monster Hunter, and your food items will basically be permanent. In Wild Hearts, you actually have to go out into the field and collect them yourself, and there are ways of automating certain things. So you can place down, for instance, a food shrine, which will just gather food every now and then you can come by and collect it, as well as a paddle scoop, which will collect fish. And other than that, there doesn't really seem to be any way of gathering meat, but you can gather fish and just food items from the map that you put the shrine down in. So there is that. And the other form of preparation that Wild Hearts has is map preparation, essentially. Whereas with Monster Hunter, it has designated camp locations that you have to complete an objective in order to unlock. In Wild Hearts, there are areas that the game pushes you to use to set up camps. One of them being the Sylvan Settlement Ruins. Essentially, what the game does is it has areas which have a lower cost to set up a camp, because setting up a camp requires dragon pit capacity, it requires earth, and they're very expensive when outside of these areas. And as you can see, my earth capacity is basically 0, but I could still set up another camp here because the cost is so low. And so basically it's kind of like a trade-off where you can set up your camps in the areas the game recommends for a lower cost, which gives you freedom to set up more things using the earth element, which there, to be honest, isn't really anything else that uses the earth element except for camps. So, that kind of is unfortunate, but you can also go the route of setting up a camp where there isn't any kind of recommendation to lower the cost, and just deal with not having to set up as many camps, basically. I feel like I explained that poorly, but essentially, the game has areas where it wants you to set up camps, but you can ignore that and set up camps wherever you want, just at a higher cost, is what I was trying to get at. And you can also set up other things, such as an air tunnel that will let you fly up in the air, so that way you can then, get up high and then kind of use a glider to fly around the map, and that will help you with traversal, as well as setting up a zip line to take you to areas a bit quicker. And all of this is so that way you can set up a very fast way of traversing to certain areas of the map where monsters are likely to head when they flee. So for instance, I have this set up here, so I can get up top whenever a monster decides it wants to run away, all the way over here. I could just go to the Sylvan Settlement Camp, and then take those 2 zip lines, and I'm basically at the arena to fight. So, you can set up the map in whatever way you want, using whatever kind of, materials you want to help you fight whatever monster you want to fight, basically. And so, to kind of demonstrate that, I initially had a camp set up here to help with fighting monsters that would, end up running to this area, like the Dreadclaw. What is it called? Yeah, the Dreadclaw. The Dreadclaw and the Spine Glider would tend to go to that area, so I had a camp set up in this area so that way I could, get there quicker, basically. And same thing with the Dragon Altar, the Lava Back tends to go into this area, and so you could just basically set up camps wherever it is you want, and you can also move the camp location whenever you're tired of fighting that monster or want to go fight something else. Same thing with the different kinds of zip lines and stuff. If you place one in a place that you aren't going to go to anymore because, the monster you're fighting doesn't go to that area, you can simply just remove the flying vines and place them in a more strategic area for whichever monster it is you plan on fighting. And they basically stay around forever until you delete them. As well as the basic Karakuri, like the springs and, harpoon or whatever, these stakes. Basically, these these are persistent as well. And that can get kind of annoying when you're, spamming them a lot to be used in fights, but they're also just very good tools for helping you get around and all this kind of stuff. And so this is easily the biggest form of preparation that Wild Hearts has. The second being gathering ingredients for food, and third being the equipment, essentially, because You could just put one equipment set on and never have to change it, which is also kind of true in Monster Hunter. And so that form of preparation isn't as strong as it could be. And so these are basically the types of preparation in Wild Hearts. You've got map preparation, you've got food preparation, and then you've got your equipment preparation. And Wild Hearts doesn't have any items to use during fights. It only has healing items and food ingredients, which are persistent, and you can, reset them to get different ones, but can't eat during a fight, so you have to use it outside of combat. And that's basically it, right? Those are the main forms of preparation that Wild Hearts has. Okay, so how can we add preparation aspects to Monster Hunter without having them interfere too much with gameplay? And, what other ways are there of creating preparation, essentially? And I think that Wild Hearts does a pretty good job with preparation with regards to its map preparation, because it's basically permanent. So you basically go into a map and you set up a camp wherever it is that you decide is worthwhile, and you can also set up essentially items to help get to areas even faster, right? So you can set up camps in either a spot that is able to reach other spots faster, or you set up a camp right next to the monster. And so basically what they could do is, you see where this buddy recon spot is? This is on top of the mountain. And this is actually a good spot to set up a camp, because it gives you access to pretty much all areas on the map very quickly. Because with the wire bugs in Monster Hunter Rise, it lets you traverse the map fairly quickly. And honestly, I think the only problem with wire bugs is that they have to regen even outside of combat. If they were just infinite until you until you engage with combat, I think that traversal in Rise would have basically no problems. But because of that, it can be still relatively slow getting to certain areas. But obviously, the next Monster Hunter game isn't going to have wire bugs, and might not even have Palamutes, so getting around is going to be very important, especially for people who started with Rise and then switching back to a slower style. Traversing the map with how likely it is to be slow, I think that's not going to be a good thing. So I think having ways of traversing the map, or customizing the map to make it easier to traverse, would be pretty good. And however they decide to go about that, of course, would be up to them. But I think approaching it in a style that's similar to Wild Hearts would be good. That, or just increasing the amount of camps that you have, or letting the player select where they want to set up camps. I think that would be good enough. And that would be a pretty major aspect of preparation handled right there. So I think that would be good. Another aspect of preparation that I think would be important is, of course, items. Items are very important in Monster Hunter, and I don't really know how they could go about creating more preparation with the regards to items without it being too obnoxious. But at the very least, I think that certain status effects in Monster Hunter, because there are a lot. There's paralysis, poison. There's the web status effect. There's the blast status effect. A bunch of different other types of statuses and ailments that can afflict your player. And I think that creating items that are worthwhile to use is very important, because Monster Hunter actually has a lot of items that, in theory, would be good for this. Like Cleanser removes any foam or webbing from your body, so like the bubbles or webbing, right, from Mizutsune and Ragnakadaki. This would, in theory, be worthwhile to use against those things, as well as deodorant for Hellfire Blight, Blast Blight, and Stench. Once again, an item that you would think would be important to use to remove those status effects. But the problem is that these status effects can be removed fairly easily, even without them, and the effects that they apply aren't that detrimental to your character, so there really isn't any point in removing them quickly. So, if they increased the effectiveness of these status effects and made it so you had to use these items, I think that that would be fine. And of course, they can also just put them in the item box, right? Or you could take the route of equipping armor, right? Preparing your armor set to better handle these effects rather than the items, right? And so I think that if you decide to not prepare items or prepare an armor set when fighting up against a monster that applies certain status effects, I think that you should be punished for not doing either of those things. Right? And of course, with the item box, right, you could put items in there to, help when fighting against certain monsters. So they could put in Cleanser in here when you're fighting Mizutsune or Ragnakadaki, but a small amount. So that way, you know, you can't get away with the entire fight and, still have a surplus of that item, because then, once again, what's the point of creating an armor set or actually crafting the items yourself in abundance when you could just simply go into the quest and pick them up for free, basically, right? So there needs to be a limited supply in the supply box, and the status effects need to be prevalent enough to require a decent amount, more than can be supplied with the item box, to encourage players to either create an armor set or make decorations that resist that status effect, or craft the items. And I think that that wouldn't be a massively intrusive way of creating preparation in these types of games. Same thing with Wild Hearts. Wild Hearts doesn't have any items at all, and so the only type of preparation when it comes to remove like things like poison or other status effects, really your only option is armor, right? That's all you can do to prepare, is equip an armor set that has fire resist, poison resist, and that kind of thing. Those are your only options in Wild Hearts, which I think is fine, but once again, the effects don't really hurt that much, and so there isn't much point in doing that. So, but anyways, those are just a few of the ways I think that they could make preparation a bit more important in the hunting genre, because I think that it's integral to, the feel of these games. But anyways, that's everything that I wanted to say.